welcome into What the Music. Very excited as I get to talk to very cool musicians from all over the globe. This one is one of the ones that I've been anticipating for a while, as we've been in kind of a bit of correspondence to get to this point. But that's what makes it kind of cool. And we are playing a few cuts from the album that will debut later on this month. So I'm really excited that we get to kind of preview some of those cuts from Quixotic right here on What the Music. And of course, I'm here with Neil, singer-songwriter, and of course, co-founder of the band Lusitanian Ghosts. And I found it funny, though, before we get into everything, that you consider yourself a recluse.
I do, because I basically took like 10 years. I was touring in Europe a lot with my solo project as Neil Leyton, like 15, 20 years ago. And then I kind of came back to my home country of Portugal. And I was pretty burned out. So my plan was to sort of just like sit by the seaside and recharge my batteries. And then next thing you know, 10 years have passed. And I'm, Lusitanian Ghosts is sort of like, it's really not picking up on where I left off as a songwriter, because it was really a long hiatus and I'm sort of a different person these days. So it's I guess I've just gone back to the roots, as you say, but Portugal feels really remote, and I don't really, I get up in the morning, I go to the office, I work, in music as a music publisher, and, I do all that stuff, but I don't really go out much. So I am a recluse pretty much.
It's weird.
And a workaholic.
And what? Those two things are kind of perfect for a singer, songwriter, such as yourself, But when you are that kind of recluse, though, like, how do you take from experiences? Because, like, part of being a songwriter is going out, experiencing it, and then writing about it. What happens when you're just more sheltered? Does that kind of hone in your skills on your inner self?
Oh no, I have no skills to hone per se, but you know what it is? Because I couldn't just pick up the guitar and write a rock and roll song as though I was, still living in London or Toronto, or Stockholm. Because I wasn't. I was like in this sort of remote, I call it the Shire, because it's sort of like a remote, peaceful land where, not much happens. There's a couple of corrupt politicians here and there, but it's like, it was really hard to write, because what was I going to write about? Like Portuguese politics? That's not really very interesting on a global level. So it took those 10 years away from it all to sort of go, wait a minute. No, there's like these really interesting folk instruments, the cordophones, and there's stuff that I can write about from a Portuguese person playing rock and roll, thinking about Portuguese history and sort of, how we were very responsible for the slave trade, and we've, as a country, we've never really apologized for it or come to any sort of reckoning. The way, for example, Germany did after World War II, like, Portugal's never done that. There's been no historical reparations of any sort. And I think, so that sort of triggered finding these ancient instruments that were almost going extinct in the 20th century. That's where it sort of made sense to write again, because it didn't make, that's why, it was close to 10 years that I didn't write a song, because it just didn't feel right. There's a Dylan documentary from '66 where somebody's like, oh, there's a new singer in town. He wants to meet you. His name's Donovan. And Dylan's like, oh yeah? Well, what's he got to say then? And that's the thing that sort of stuck with me. It's like, okay, well, if you don't have anything to say, just don't write a song. The world doesn't need a song that doesn't have anything to say. Another song that doesn't have anything to say. So if you're going to write a song, speak your truth and make it loud, preferably, or don't if it's acoustic instruments.
That's so crazy because I noticed that in this album, much like you went back to those old instruments, you actually went back to kind of pre-recording with recording analog for this album. 2 questions, maybe even 10 on doing that. One, I get recording analog, but dude, that is such a tedious process because it's not like how it is now where you could go back and fix something. It's super pressure and it's money.
I hadn't recorded on 2-inch tape since my 2003 album, Midnight Sun. And Midnight Sun was done at Hala Music in Toronto. And before that, I recorded Secret Avenue at Manta, always on 2-inch tape. And when we sort of started doing stuff on digital, I fully subscribe Neil Young's perspective that digital technologies were adopted too early, and the quality of digital technologies were not up to snuff when we started using digital recording. Remember DAT tapes? They were 8-bit, really crappy sound, and so it was kind of early. And when 2-inch tape studios became too expensive or eventually shut down because the big multinational labels stopped paying their studio bills. Like my friend in New York, Basie Bob Brockman, his studio went bankrupt because the labels just stopped paying. They owed them hundreds of thousands. And so it's a privilege to find a studio like Clouds Hill in Hamburg, which is sort of like, it really feels like that sort of background that I'm looking at behind you, because it shouldn't exist anymore, but it does. And it does because Johann Scherer is a collector of analog gear, and he keeps it all, he maintains it all, he invests, and he's got a label and a publisher as well, like me. And he basically really cares about his work as an engineer. And those places are few and far between in today's world. It's a privilege. It was an honor and a privilege to record there.
Did that inspire you to, make sure that you were perfect? Do you enjoy perfection?
No, not at all. No, not at all. Not at all. And going back to what you said earlier about, not being able to edit, and you can punch in on analog to a degree. But I've always, all of my favorite records are records with mistakes on them. Whether it's like Bowie going in Gene Genie, where he's like, get back on there because somebody misses a beat or whatever, or there's some new Elvis outtakes of them recording I'm Leaving, and they're counting, and it's and they sort of missed the one, and it's just I think the best recordings are the ones where you kind of feel the human element. And so to us at Clouds Hill, it was not about perfection at all. It was about just getting a good take. I don't think we did any more than 2 or 3 takes per song. We didn't need to. It's not, because it wasn't about perfection. It was just about, it's like taking a picture. It's are you going to take the perfect picture? Well, you might, but you're not going to know you're taking the perfect picture until later, it's kind of like, songs are the same to me. You can take so many different pictures of the same song, and you never know which one's going to be the perfect picture of that song. So it's about the studio. And if the studio helps you, get inspired to sort of deliver a good take, then that's half the battle, I think.
Is it true that there were no guitars that were used in this album? Because I can't fathom that. What song was it? I believe it was Soul Duranium.
Soul Duranium, yeah.
Yeah, I could have sworn that was guitar in the background. As I'm listening to it.
On the first record, right? What we did on the first record was we sort of set up a basic 3-piece rock and roll set up with drums, bass, and electric guitar, And then we overdubbed the cordophones to see how they would fit in. And that first experiment went so well that when we started doing promo for those records, we would go to radio stations with just the cordophones and play those same songs without the guitar. and it worked. So for the second record, we went like, why don't we just do this, bass, drums, and just the cordophones? And that's what we did. I mean, that's not to say that we can't like process the sound and put them through like distortion and amps and stuff. We can, but there's no 6-string guitars. Like it's all the viola Amarantina, the viola Braguesa, the viola Campaniça, and what was it? The viola Terceira from the Azores Islands. And so all of them are from a different region in Portugal. Portugal is a really small country, but you can drive like 100 kilometers and, people speak a little different. They have different types of foods and they have different musical instruments and traditions. So that's, the Amarantina comes from up north in Amarante, Braguesa also from the city of Braga. The Beiroa is from Castelo Branco, Campaniça is from Alentejo, so they all have their sort of different tunings, different numbers of strings, different voices, and different traditions. So, some people were like, that's sort of like outrageous. You can't distort, you can't put a pickup in those violas and distort them and put them through amps. That's not tradition. And I'm like, no, that's right. It's not tradition. It's sort of like keeping tradition alive through reinvention,
Yeah.
But that it's absolutely true. There are no electric guitars, no 6-string instruments on the new record.
You could have fooled me because I'm like, there's no way. Because I'm like, like this sounds like this sounds like that. But I'm taking your word for it. I know you wouldn't lie to me. So,
absolutely not.
But it feels like you're lying to my ears. If that makes sense.
You know what? We're about to do a live streamed show from Setúbal on November 2nd. And I hope my voice holds because all the kids are sick from school and I hope I don't come down with anything because I feel my throat going. But November 2nd, we're going to do this live stream to show to the world that, what these little weird cordophone viola instruments look like and what they sound like. And so you can actually see it done live, where we're going to be playing songs from both records. And even on the first record, no 6-string guitars are going to be used anymore. We've reworked all the arrangements to just have it be the chordophones. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Do you think for more information, people can log on to LusiTanianGhosts.com for that?
Yeah. We're gonna post soon the YouTube link for our YouTube channel where we're going to do the live stream. That'll be on LusiTanianGhosts.com for sure.
I can't wait. I'll for sure log in and check that out because that's one of the things that I have to see. I'm like, how do you guys do this? It's so really cool. I love the music and I love your new album that's out and later on in the month. And for more information, I really dug it, which is why I had to get a hold of you. And, like I tell every band, everybody goes through a process with me and, sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't get it,
Sure.
but when I do get it, I'm like, I gotta have you on. I gotta talk, see what's.
I really appreciate it, Turtle. I think it's great to sort of talk about it and because everybody knows the ukulele, right? The ukulele, it came from Portugal centuries ago. It's an instrument called the cavaquinho. First it went to Brazil and then it sort of made its way around the world to Hawaii. But nobody knows these other violas. For some reason, I think because fado music was so big here in the 20th century, and it was sort of like propped up by the fascist regime because we were under a fascist regime until 1974. So fado music was sort of like when you thought about Portugal, you just thought about fado music, nothing else. And I think because these folk instruments might have led people to singing protest songs or whatever, they were sort of shunned by the regime, and people were sort of like taught to sort of discard them as not really valuable instruments at all, you know. So it was either fado or classical music, you know, and folk was sort of garbage to the media and to the government and stuff. So everything was very controlled up until 74. And then I think it's only been in the last 10 years or so that different artists have started playing these instruments again. We're not the first. You know, different artists like Gajo, who's one of our Campaniça players in the Ghosts, or Befechada, who plays the Braguesa, you know, Omiri. There's a lot of artists now that are using these instruments again. I think what's a bit different about us is that we're playing rock and roll with them and singing in English. You know, it's like, and even a lot of Portuguese people are going like, "What are you guys doing? We don't get it." You know, it's like you don't have to get it. At the end of the day, we're just sort of like celebrating the fact that we're writing songs on these instruments. You know, because if it wasn't for the instruments, I probably would still be stuck in like, what do you call it? Like my dry spell period of not, you know, writing rock and roll because I'm not in London or whatever, you know. So yeah. Sorry, I'm rambling.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the history lesson and everything on these fantastic instruments that you're using, because you're absolutely right. And it's weird because I feel that the ukulele is like, everybody thinks that's Hawaii. It must have come from the Hawaiians, but then you find out, oh my God, it was, you know, Portuguese that, you know, had it, you know. I absolutely floored. I love it. I love finding out the history of music. And, you know, it's funny when you hit a little bit when you said, you know, some instruments are just not meant to be instrumentized, you know. But I could think of, you know, when the kazoo was being vilified, you know. And I'm like,
that's right. Or the cowbell.
Yeah, or the cowbell, you know. But it always takes somebody to champion that instrument, whether it be for one song or whatever, to make people rethink and reshape their thought on that instrument. So
yeah, it's like, fellas, I put my pence on one leg at a time, but, you know, I play the cordophones while I do it. It's like, whoa. I don't know. But it's yeah, I mean, you know, I think that's what, okay, I don't believe that something is more valuable just because it is different or unique. But at the same time, and I remember from when I was touring heavily, like 15 years ago, when all the towns start to look the same, and they have all the same high street shops, and all the same chain food, fast food restaurants, and all the same big sort of chains, or
it's commercialized essentially.
Yeah, like, you know, when globalization makes all the towns look the same, then touring becomes a lot more boring, because you're like, you know, the whole thing about touring was that you'd be like, oh, this is Stockholm, wow, you know, like, or, you know, this is Milan, okay, or Paris or whatever, like, and even the small towns, it was really great. Like, I loved touring through like small town Austria, all the way down from like Finland to Slovenia, because the places were different, you know. And then there was I forget, it must have been around like 2006 or 2007 when the landscape in Europe started noticeably shifting and becoming more homogenized, and everything started looking the same. And I was like, you know, this is not good, because then it's like you can't really value this diversity that our planet has if everything looks the same, you know. And so again, I don't think that, you know, just because we're playing rock and roll with these instruments makes us any better or any more interesting than anybody else. That's not what I'm saying. But it gave me personally the willpower and the urge to write again and perform again. And hopefully that's not a bad thing. It might be. No. It might be a very bad thing.
No, it can't be if I have you on. You know what I mean? And I reacted to your album, so clearly, you know, at least you got one person, me. You know what I mean? So
sweet, awesome.
That's what counts. But, speaking of awesome, I see that you're having, over there, there's like a huge, like, I want to say 8-hour difference between where we live, me in the States, you out there in Portugal.
Right now it's midnight.
Right, and it's barely, 4 o'clock over here, 4:30
right
here. But I noticed that you're drinking some wine. Right there. Is that Portuguese wine or?
Of course. It's Portugal. It's not good for my alcoholic tendencies because it's. I say that in all honesty because so I go through periods of having a bit of a tough time struggling with it, but because the wine is really good and it's also really cheap here. So I'm trying to sort of like drink the finer wines so that I drink less of them, and it's working.
Good.
So this is a bottle from Alentejo. It's by the name of Chico Garcia, which you were not able to find it in supermarkets before the pandemic, and now for some reason I found it in the supermarket. So maybe again it's becoming too commercial. I might have to drop it. No, I'm just joking.
No.
But anyway,
it could be that the production was less from other wines and they needed to just find another outlet as well.
Exactly. So absolutely. Things are really weird now with supply and stuff. Like we're hearing about shortages of dried codfish from Norway.
Oh, wow.
Which, Portuguese people love dried codfish, the salted right. Dry. And we're hearing about these shortages because of supply chain problems. Not enough container ships or whatever. So everything's we're living in weird times, it's, I worry about the kids.
I don't. And I'll tell you why.
Good.
Because sometimes we need to go through things like this in order to think outside the box. How do we get this stuff here quicker? There might be an easier way. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like sometimes the old ways of doing things are old and they need to catch up.
Absolutely right. I never thought of it from that perspective, and that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you for that.
No worries.
Wow.
Just to let you know.
Well, hold on a second. I'm going to have to write a song about that, and I'll have to credit you.
Oh, you're far too kind. But
because that's a really good perspective to have. Wow. I've never looked at it from that perspective. Are you drinking coffee?
No. Oh, earlier. So, for those that, haven't been stalking any of us, we were doing an email to each other and you said, oh, you better be drinking Irish coffee. And I said, I love Irish coffee. It's usually I have an Irish coffee Saturday. I save that for the weekend, because on my weekends, I have time to play with. But, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do Irish coffee today, but I'm going to call it American coffee because I'm going to use American whiskey.
Yeah.
One of my favorite American whiskeys, I'm drinking right now, which is a little bar right by where I live. They have their own whiskey, nice. that they make, and it's absolutely fantastic. So I went to and when you were talking about the commercialization of like things, it really brought it back to where I go and I, spend my money, because I was like, I could easily go to a Starbucks or wherever, but I found, I have two favorite local coffee or donut shops that I go to. One of them I prefer over the other, but if I'm in the vicinity of the other one, I'll go to the other one. But this is the one, and of course it's like right next to the gym that I go to, and I'm like, oh man, this is, this is counterproductive, but
it's it's the yin and yang, it's you have, punishment, reward. It's
yeah, exactly. I'm like one of those people that like, the anti, like everyone's like, I love going to the gym because I feel great afterwards. And I'm like, I like going to the gym and then leaving and saying it's done. I'm finally over it. Now I got to wait till tomorrow to hit it. But I do enjoy sleep, and the gym makes me fall asleep. So I'm like,
that's good.
Yeah, that's only like it's not getting in shape or anything like that. It's like, man, am I going to sleep really good tonight? That's the only thing, like positive thing that I found from going to the gym.
And that's the not good thing about the alcohol consumption is that it actually, everything. You sleep a lot worse on alcohol, and you can, I don't really suffer from hangovers anymore because it's sort of like under control. But I do. When you told me the time of the interview, I was like, okay, let's do the Irish coffee, because that's usually what I do if I'm working late, and if I'm putting, like, we did this amazing European project called, unimaginative. The apple didn't fall far from the tree, because we called it European Ghosts. And European Ghosts is sort of like, it was an artist residency at Clouds Hill that we did in September. It was based on the same sort of concept as Lusitanian Ghosts, and we picked up on traditions from the Sami people in the north of Europe with the yoik singing, and the Lemko people from the people without a country in the intersection between Poland, Slovakia, and Ukraine. And the Lemko have a great vocal singing tradition, like a women's polyphonic tradition. And so we picked up on, Rimur from Iceland, and we sort of crossed all of these things in this artistic residency. And usually, if I'm up late writing one of these projects, that's when the Irish coffee comes into play. Because, like, there's no way, I just turned 50, right? So I can't stay up all night like I used to when I was 20. But if I have a couple Irish coffees, I can write up until like 3 or 4 in the morning. And it's usually pretty okay stuff. Like, I'm not talking about songwriting. I'm talking about like project writing,
right. Yeah.
So it's just a bit of a different track, but it's, these days I have my head firmly split between those two worlds, like the music business world and the sort of creative Lusitanian Ghost world. And I also want to do another, Neil Leyton record at some point. A more solo record with, a sort of more diverse approach, but that's going to come later.
Yeah, I can't wait for that too, as you are a solo artist as well. When you were talking about the European Ghost and the Lusitanian Ghost, it made me think of this band called, and maybe you've heard of them, maybe you've not, but they're called Rhythms del Mundo. And what these guys are is they're a bunch of guys from a previous band called the Buena Vista Social Club.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And so the Buena Vista Social Club then created Rhythms del Mundo, and all their albums are a love letter to certain genres. So it's like them putting their beats and getting together with other artists to create, to cover a song, but give it that like flavor, that like salsa flavor. And they've done that with Africa. They've got with other popular artists. They put African beats to their music, and they've created this entire kind of ecosystem of them putting out a bunch of different types of
that's cool
stuff, So I kind of got that like with you, like maybe you're on that track, with that.
Yeah, in a way, I guess. I saw, I think, what was the fellow's name? Guitar player Eliades Ochoa, maybe, or Ochoa. I saw him at the Danforth Music Hall in Toronto back in the day. And what struck me, and he was one of the original Buena Vista Social Club guys. And what struck me was like, he was playing and he broke a string, and instead of a roadie coming out to change the string, he told a story while he was changing his own string and tuning. And then he went into the next song, and I was like, okay, wow. Like, you got to eat a lot of soup before you get to that sort of like operational capacity on stage. But he was amazing. So that's something that they're doing, like the surviving guys are doing after.
Yeah.
I gotta look into that.
Yeah, you're gonna absolutely flip. You're gonna absolutely flip on. I think they put out 3 or 4 albums, and I have them all. And is
Rycooter involved as well with the?
You know what? It's been a while since I've read the liner notes I just know it's a bunch of the guys from there, the surviving members, because the Buenaventura Social Club, the people have been, going on to the big gig in the sky type thing. So, yeah, but it's pretty epic. Much, of course, like your album, which drops later on in the month. Highly suggest that you guys log on to the websites, which I'm going to have links to your Facebook, your Instagram, your links to your Spotify, so they could catch up on your first album. And of course,
awesome.
Please go check them out. I would truly appreciate that. And we truly appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on, being so candid about everything you're doing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Turtle. It's great to chat. And it's always, it makes me feel a little bit less remote and less of a recluse, at least when we can connect on video and sort of just see each other while we chat and have a glass of wine. So it's great. Thank you so much. Thank you, really appreciate it.
Oh man, all the love's on this side of the table.
And next time I'm over in the States for South by Southwest and stuff, I'll let you know I'm coming, and maybe we can have a drink and have a margarita in Austin or something.
That'd be epic. I'm not that far from Austin, and I've been wanting to do South by Southwest, but there's this little thing going on over here. It's kind of crazy. So. That we can't really travel. So I'm like,
I know. But there's just another story I want to tell you if you have another couple minutes. Because there was, I forget what year it might have been, like 2016 or 2017. But I was at South by Southwest and I was going to check out a friend of mine from Montreal, Richie Deere. He's got a band called Elephant Stone. And they were playing at Hotel Vegas at South by. And I went early because I wanted to catch up with Rishi. And he's like, "Oh, my God, Neil, I haven't seen you in years. Where you been?" I'm like, I've been in Portugal. and then there was a band that was playing that were going on stage before Elephant Stone. And they were called Chicha or like Xixa. And I knew about them because I know their European manager, Christoph Storbeck, and he'd been really pumping them up, and he's like, "You got to see them." And I was there by accident to see Elephant Stone. And Christoph comes up, I'm so happy you're here. I'm like, "Nah, okay, full disclosure, I'm here because I came for Elephant Stone. They're great. Shisha are on the bill. I'm going to catch these guys." And they blew me away. I don't know if you've heard them, but they're sort of a cross between like cumbia and the MC5.
That's cool.
And I was like, wait a minute. So and they are they have a singular responsibility in Lusitanian Ghosts, because that's when I realized, wait a minute, you can sort of like go back to your roots and pick up like traditions and rhythms and stuff and still play rock and roll. And they hit the stage looking like a bunch of badass outlaws from Mexico or whatever, and they came out in this like haze of feedback like the MC5 used to, and then they go into this like perfectly orchestrated cumbia step, and they're all moving in a syncopated sort of. It blew my mind. I was like, these guys are awesome. I told Christoph, I said, we have to have them come and play in Portugal. So the next year, I booked them at Westway Lab Festival here in Portugal, and I mean, it was just amazing. It's one of the bands that I would really recommend. I think they're not from Austin. I think they're from Houston, Texas, maybe. Or no, they're from Tucson, of course, Arizona. They're from Tucson because a couple of the guys also play with, oh Lord, I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, they play with a pretty big Tucson band. And yeah, sorry, I'm rambling again.
It's fine. No. Absolutely enjoying the stories. Absolutely, enjoying it, man. Sometimes we just love to just tell stories and, catch up on past memories. You know,
it's the post-pandemic stress disorder, because it's like we're just so happy to connect and to talk. You know, it's so good. You know,
yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things, you know, and we'll kind of leave lastly on this though, is that, you know, I think that a lot of us, you know, have these rules, you know, like for music, and you know, I don't know why we do that to ourselves. You know, you are clearly showing that there are no rules. You could do whatever you want with music, you know, and you don't need guitars. You don't need certain things, you know, and, you know, when we put those restrictions on ourselves, yeah, I get it. We're going to get some creative stuff, but at the same time, we're going to kind of miss out on kind of other things that we could be doing instead of doing the same old two-step or whatever, you know?
No, I think you're right, but I think it takes, you know, I kind of understand. I think back to like when I was in high school and my first bands and stuff, and when you're sort of just getting into music, you sort of, I think it's natural to a certain extent to want to emulate your idols or even your peers. And you sort of like step into these rules, and you step into these sort of like, sort of a chain of aesthetics that is deemed acceptable to your crew, or, you know, like there was a really big sort of mod revivalist scene in Toronto when I was playing, and there was also a goth scene, and there was the punks, and, you know, different sort of tribes, and I always felt really comfortable moving between them, sort of like, you know, I could put on a mod suit and you know, dance to the Small Faces all night, but that wasn't the end all and be all of my existence, and I think that, but it maybe takes a little bit of I don't know what the word is.
You think courage?
Yeah, like breadth requirements or whatever, to sort of just go beyond your core. I don't know. I'm thinking I probably do need the Irish coffee, because I'm feeling, you know, a bit tired.
No worries. It was just
the wine is affecting my thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No worries. Neil, thank you again so much for coming on the show. Truly, truly appreciate it. And thank you for letting me preview some of the songs that will be out later in November off the album Quixotic.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Turtle. And I'll send you a thank you email a little bit later with some wine recommendations.
Deal. And again, for more information on the band, go ahead, log on to entertheshell.com. I'm going to have links to everything, but for now, you can always log on to LusitanIanGhosts.com for more information.
No, it's Lusitanian, not Lithuanian, because otherwise you'll go to the other end of Europe. So
maybe you should get both.
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, no. I talked about that with Daryl Bamonte, who used to be the manager for Robert Smith.
No way.
Yeah. And Daryl's got a band called Permafrost from Norway, and he was like, he said to me, he's like, you know, a lot of people are going to mix up Lusitanian with Lithuanian. And I'm like, oh, really? And he goes, yeah, but, you know, you could have like your own cover band in Lithuania. It could be like the Lithuanian Ghosts, and they could play like polkas. And I don't know. It was, he just went on, and he sort of, you know, he wove that thread. Daryl Bamonte, Permafrost, that's another recommendation for sure.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The Lithuanian Ghosts cover Lusitanian Ghosts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just like, well, it's like a cover band.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, it's all a publishing plot for the Baltic states to be won over unsuspectingly.
Yeah. But either way, you win because you're in all the bands. So it just works out.
The way I look at it these days, I win just by making music, man. You know. Congratulations,
man. Doing it is a huge gift, and
thank you for helping to share it.
Of course. It's the most humbling thing I can do is, you know, to be an outlet for people and for people to actually agree or even just listen to me and say, you know what, this guy knows what he's talking about. Sometimes I get I don't, but every now and then I get an email saying, man, I never even heard of this band and thank you for helping me. And so, that's what I do it for, cause my biggest thing that people always tell me, and the biggest gripe is they say there's no good music out there. And I'm just like, you're just not looking hard enough, or you're just, stuck in the same old, using the same old spots, or, you're just listening to radio, or, you're not seeking out the different outlets, and, I get to be one of those different outlets.
That's true. And that's super important, because it is sort of like, I've always sort of had a tendency to just listen to music that I already know. That's always been, even when I was young, that was a problem. And I recognize it as a problem. But you usually had a wider network of friends that would sort of, clue you into stuff. And unless it's sort of an occasion like being at South by Southwest and discovering Chicha or Alexander Savior, which I also saw play at South by and I really liked. Unless it's at those showcase festival events, I accept my share of mea culpa in saying that I don't proactively listen to shows for, curators such as yourself, and you're sharing the word on stuff. But I think something should be done in terms of the algorithms of the platforms or something to sort of stir up some newness to what kids are listening to and stuff. I think now I'm sounding like an old man, but
get out of here.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, but I think your work is. This is to say your work is super important, not because of me,
right,
but because of everything else that you are letting folks find out about.
Yeah, thank you. That's very, very humbling. Very humbling. Thank you so much for that. And again, for more information, LusitanianGhosts.com, the album Exotic, Quixotic, out later on, but make sure to just log on for those dates on the website. And again, if you can't remember any of that, entertheshell.com. Show notes, I'll have everything just to remember. Now, the last song that we're going to leave on is going to be the title track from the title album, which is Exotic Quixotic. And this was sung by another member, right? Mike Ghost, right?
That's right. It's Mickey Ghost. Mickey Ghost is, I met Mickey when my friend Lars Gustafsson put together a band to sort of back me, Neil Leyton, back in my European touring days as a solo artist. And Mickey Ghost was the lead guitar player in that band. And so we sort of because he was already sort of nicknamed Mickey Ghost, I started calling that band from Sweden, my backing band from Sweden, I started calling them the Ghosts. And when Mickey and I put together, basically when we put together Lusitanian Ghosts, we sort of came by that name honestly because Lusitanian means Portuguese. The Lusitanians were a Celtic tribe that were in Portugal before the Romans. And so Lusitanian points to the geography of the instruments that we use. And Ghosts, that's also a tip of the hat for Mickey Ghost. And it's and he sings Exotic Quixotic because actually, between you and I, he's a much better singer than me. He's got a real David Bowie vibe, which of course I love. That's a photo of David there.
Yeah, I noticed that.
That's print number 1.
Get out of here.
The photographer is Barry Wenzel, who used to be the head photographer at Melody Maker, but now lives in Toronto. And last time I was over to see Barry, he said, I just did a new print of Bowie. You got to see this one. And he basically gifted this beautiful Ziggy Stardust era Bowie photo. Anyway, so Mickey Ghost, I think, has a sort of Bowie-esque voice. And my favorite moments when we're playing live, it's when he sings Exotic Quixotic, I get to just sit and listen. And there's another moment on the record where we go from a song called Older and Colder, but then we made it a medley because, I think we need more medleys on records, maybe. But so I begged Mickey to segue into an old song of his called Hometown. And so we go from this like really sort of dirgy, slow, older and colder, Neil Leyton sort of dark moment of, me going like, I just can't feel life the way I used to when I was young and all that crap. And then we go from that into Mickey singing like, oh, it should be beautiful. And it's like, that's my favorite moment on the record. And it's also my favorite moment on the live show because, like, again, I just get to hear him sing, and it blows my mind every time.
Exactly. And let's not forget, you do have a live show coming up, which anybody can watch on YouTube. Again, for more information, log on to lusitanianghosts.com for more information.
That's coming up November 2nd from a nice theater venue in Setúbal. And it's still going to be pretty sparsely attended because of the COVID restrictions and stuff. But but we're going to, multicam and film it properly so that we can demonstrate that there are, in fact, Turtle, no 6-string guitars.
I'll be watching. I'll have my magnifying glass.
It's like, oh, where's the
like I'm a detective, you know what I mean?
No, I tell you, man, it was as much a surprise to us as to anyone that it could be done without 6-string guitars, and it's pretty cool. It's a different experience, I guess.
Yeah, and it turns out to make a great album as well. So make sure to go check it out. Exotic, Quixotic, great album coming out later on. I'll have a link to the Spotify so you can preview some more music, as we got to preview some music from that album. Neil, I could talk to you for another 2 hours, but
Sorry, dude, yeah.
but I'm keeping you up. I think
I really need the Irish coffee for that. No, but it's all good. It's been really a great chat, and again, I want to thank you, and reach out anytime, and let's keep in touch. And I hope you can catch the show on the second.
I definitely will. And we leave you now with Exotic Quixotic.
Plaster beauty waiting, standing tall on snow.